So we got a special one in the shop today. We have a 77 Can-Am. It's a 400 automatic. They're all automatics, actually. So some of you may kind of recognize the car. It was in the background when we went to pick up the 77 Bonneville. This car was in the back there. So the owner of this car was having some issues, carburetor issues. I guess it's got a Ram Air 4 cam in it. Some other stuff possibly. I think it might have some different heads on it. I'm going to take a look at that. But basically, he had converted over to a different carburetor and put a Demon carb on it, and wasn't too thrilled with the performance of the Demon carb. But the bigger issue was that the ignition module had died on him when he was driving the car. So he was actually interested in doing a fuel injection conversion and asked if we could do it. So the car got towed over here because obviously it's not running, it doesn't have spark. And we got the Holley Sniper kit, and we're going to be doing a Sniper conversion on it. We also have a Speedmaster intake manifold that we're going to install also. We'll show you that. But let's get started on it, start tearing into it and tearing it down, and start doing the conversion. So I got the car up in the air, and I'm going to review a few things and just kind of come up with a game plan. So since usually I like to put the fuel pump actually in the gas tank, but they don't really make a drop-in sending unit for the Colonnade roof cars, or 73 to 77s, for like the Le Mans and things like that. So we ended up getting a Sniper, I call it the K kit. Basically it's the part number with a K after it, and it comes with the fuel pump and fuel hose and fittings and things like that. So we opened up the box. I took out the fuel pump. This is the inline external fuel pump that they give you. I heard that it was supposed to be like a similar to like a Bosch pump, I think, or a Walbro maybe. It doesn't actually say Walbro on it. The best place to mount these is you want to be under the level or under the gas tank itself, as far as like the very bottom of the tank, because you want this to gravity feed into the pump. These pumps really aren't suckers. They don't like to draw fuel as much. So I'm actually thinking of mounting it somewhere here on the frame rail, and we're going to grab the stock steel fuel line, and probably it's got to go this way actually, because the wires go forward. There's an arrow on this thing showing the flow. So we'll probably tap into the stock 3/8 steel fuel line, maybe make a new one from back by the axle, and I could even pass through that little hole right there. But we're going to come into this, and then we're going to go into the stock fuel line right here, and then we'll just keep all the stock 3/8 steel fuel line going forward. And then we'll figure out, oh, it looks like somebody jacked it up right here. We'll going forward, we'll figure out what we're going to do up here. We're passing fuel line through the frame rail right there, and I think it actually goes all the way up front and comes out where the mechanical fuel pump is. Now we're not going to use the mechanical fuel pump anymore, so we'll have to put the block off on there. Somebody's got a fuel filter between the pump and the fitting. So let's see, we'll have to figure out where we're going to go with that, because sometimes, well, what I like to do is actually come up and go to the throttle body from the backside. It's usually how I do it on the Trans Am, but the Trans Am's a different situation being a subframe car. We'll have to look into this. Maybe we'll actually go forward. Maybe we'll tap into the stock fuel line that is almost completely, it's pinched off pretty good there. That's not good. We'll have to figure something out. We're going to have to figure out what we want to do there. Maybe we'll keep that there. And all right, more planning to do. I'm not going to bore you guys with that. So keep reviewing, keep looking at it, figuring out what we're going to have for a game plan. All right, so we had to improvise on the fuel tank sending unit. We can't, since there is no EFI sending unit to put the tank or put the fuel pump in the tank, the problem becomes running fuel lines. We have to have a return. Our regulator is going to be in the fuel filter. It's a C5 Corvette fuel filter. When I get that, I'll show video of it. But that's going to be our regulator and our return off the fuel filter. So the return's got to go back in the tank. So we have 3 lines on this sending unit. And we have the 3/8 feed. We have a 5/16 that's a vapor line that was going to the emissions canister. And then we have a 1/4 inch return that used to return from the mechanical fuel pump at the engine, because this is an air conditioned car. It had to keep the fuel cool and try to keep it from vapor locking. They would cycle fuel through the fuel pump. Now, there was this little cover deal that went over the 5/16. I don't want to use the 1/4 inch line. This is the 1/4 inch line that was coming from the mechanical pump. I don't want to use that to return from the fuel injection, because I think it's a restriction. It's too small. I wanted at least a 5/16 line. And so this was 5/16, but it's the vapor line. And what it had was, again, had this little cover over it so that fuel didn't slosh up into it, which I don't know if it would ever get that high. But then inside of it, there was a restrictor. There was a very, very small restrictor orifice cup that was pressed into the tube. So I took a drill bit and actually drilled it out and got it out. It popped right out, no problem. So now I can make the 5/16 my fuel return. Technically, my 1/4 inch now is the vapor line. But that's what we're going to use, and then we're going to run hose from that C5 Corvette fuel filter. We're going to hook it up to the 5/16 line, and that's going to be our return now. So now we'll get this back into the tank and get it back together. So, and before I showed the sending unit out of the gas tank, we had put we wanted to use the 5/16 vapor line as our return, because I was afraid the 1/4 inch factory return line from the mechanical fuel pump was not going to be large enough for the fuel injection. So I drilled out that restrictor out of the 5/16 vapor line and used that as my return. So we got the tank back up in the car, and then we hooked up our fuel lines. So we got the 3 fuel lines coming off of the tank. The large 3/8 line is the feed. We have the pre-filter, it's the fuel filter before the pump. This came with the kit. It's a Wix inline filter. So we installed that up there. The 5/16 line is actually the one with the 2 clamps on it. I had to join the 2 hoses together with a hose barb connection. And then the other one we left disconnected. This is the 1/4 inch, or I'm sorry, this is the old 5/16 vapor line. We're not using that anymore. This is a 1/4 inch line that was the return. Now it's the vapor line. Okay, so we're going to follow that over. Now I have my fuel lines here. So this is the 5/16 return. This is the 3/8 feed. I was using the original steel 3/8. I cut it. I put this is non-pressure hose here. This is because this is still just gravity feeding at this point into the pump. So we passed it into through the frame here. Got it on the fuel pump. This is the fuel pump that came with the kit. It has it also came with these isolator mounts. We have it wired and grounded. After that, now we start going high pressure. This is going to be about 60 psi of pressure. So we have our high pressure fuel injection clamps you can buy at a parts store, and we only went a short route, and it's hard to see up in there. I don't know if you can see it, or I need the light. But basically, we went into a 3/8 compression in there. It's kind of hard to see. It's a 3/8 compression to -6 AN. Got that hooked up. It's an AN hose barb with the fuel injection clamp there. And then this is all factory 3/8 steel line right here. Till we get here, made a little tweak, added in another 3/8 compression to -6 AN. We put a 90, a little short braided hose to go into our C5 Corvette fuel filter / fuel pressure regulator.
Nice.
So this is a combo, very common with fuel injection conversions and everything. Basically, what's nice about this is the regulator is part of the filter. So we come in, we feed into the filter, return goes back. This is our return hose. This is low pressure regular fuel hose, because again, this is not high pressure going back to the tank. And then So now this is where it drops down from the potential of 125 psi, I think is the max for that pump. This drops it down to 60. And then we have our AN fitting adapter here, and we have our -6 braided fuel line going up, and we're actually coming into behind the throttle body at the backside. Now let's lower the car down, and then I'll show you what's going on under the hood. To the top side of the engine, our fuel line is coming in. There's 3 ports on the throttle body that can be fuel inlet. Left rear, left front, right front are the 3 inlets that you could pick from. So there's 3 ports that you can pick from. I chose the driver's side rear to come in from the backside. I didn't want to bring the fuel line all the way forward and then up. Didn't want to do that. We capped off, that's the only return back there because that's the regulator that's part of the throttle body. So I capped that off because the regulator is now the filter, that C5 Corvette fuel filter. So we don't need to run a return line from the engine. So we got that, the fuel coming in, that's all hooked up, single feed line. We have our throttle linkage bracket. This is actually a Demon one. Works out well. And then we have it hooked up. There's no kickdown on this because it has a Turbo 400 in it, and Turbo 400s have an electronic kickdown. PCV is hooked up. Installed a vacuum port in the front. We did our modification to the HEI to actually run timing control through the HEI, which works out very well. See what else do we got going on. Over here we have all our electronics. We have our coil driver that comes with the kit. We're using that because we're running timing control now. This is the factory fuel pump relay. This is the factory Holley 30 amp fuse for the system. And then I added these 2 relays, or this relay and this fuse. And this is my own design. It's something that I do for the key-on power, mainly because I'm always, I've noticed that the pink wires, this is key-on power. If you try to take it from the fuse panel or somewhere near off the distributor, there's a possibility you're going to get a dirty signal, and that could cause problems, erratic sensors, erratic RPM, things like that. So this actually cleans up the signal a little bit. Everything's wired in. You got to have your constant power and ground to the battery for certain things on the Sniper. I'm going to walk to the other side here. So on the intake manifold, we're running, this is the Speedmaster low profile single plane intake manifold. The customer brought me this intake. This works out very well because this is a single plane intake manifold designed for cars with a shaker hood, the Trans Ams and stuff with a shaker hood scoop. This being a Can-Am Le Mans, it has a shaker hood like a Trans Am, so this kept everything, should fit fine. We haven't put the hood back on it yet, but it should fit fine. Here we have our coolant temp sensor. I like to replace the coolant temp sensor with a name brand one. I've seen where the coolant temp sensor that they give you can sometimes be off in temperature, so I always replace it with a standard brand, TX3. So we have that in the coolant crossover. It's got a 180 thermostat in it. It's got a 180 thermostat, and everything's all hooked up. We're starting to do some tuning on it. We're going to be putting a laptop on it, taking the car for a ride, dialing in timing, dialing in the fuel. Oh, I forgot to show you underneath, oxygen sensor. I put it in the passenger side exhaust pipe, welded in an actual oxygen sensor bung. I did not use the clamp-on deal that comes with the kit. I hate that thing. It just gives you potential for problems. It's a clamp-on thing with a gasket, so that people don't, if they can't weld it, I always weld it in. So it does have the oxygen sensor welded into the exhaust. So far, everything's running good. We're going to get the air cleaner back on it. We're going to bolt the hood back on, and then we're going to go take it for a ride. This car does have, we started digging into it. It's a 400. It has 1968 number 16 cylinder heads on it, which are actually pretty good heads. Got some compression, somewhere around 10.5 to 1. And from what I was told, it's a Ram Air 4 cam. From the sound, it sounds like it's a Ram Air 4 cam. It does have roller rocker arms, some aluminum roller rockers on it and stuff. So somebody's done some work to the engine. It sounds pretty good. It idles pretty nice. So we're going to get the hood on and everything, and then we'll go take it for a ride. Okay, got her out all buttoned up. It actually got a little tuning going. We took it for a ride. Let's see how she starts up. Definitely got an aggressive cam. I'd say that's a Ram Air 4. Yeah, running good. Throttle response is great. Runs really well. So that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this video informative. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.